Journeys is presented by a special grant from the Asian Pacific Islander American Public Affairs Association, otherwise known as APAPA. For more information on APAPA and its programs, please visit www.apapa.org.
And it was really, as a child, it was really a lot of fun to discover all these new things in our new apartment, new pots and pans, figuring out how the stove works. The bathrooms were fascinating. These toilets where instead of dumping water into it, you just press a little button and everything just disappears.
There's a hungry fish, I always tell people, the fish in the water, there's so much freedom. They can roam around just like a person. And when I look at this, when I have a koi pond, when I have the waterfall, it is very relaxing, very calming. And this is how I relax. Do me a favor, you have a restaurant, do me a favor, hire me. I'm pretty good, I'm clean. I am fat, I can bone a chicken in 18 seconds.
Oh, it's nuts. I love it. I mean, this is my opportunity to be here for 5 weeks filming with, a movie that I'm doing out here right now. And when we're not shooting at night or in the day, I'm out doing stand-up at night out here. Down at Times Square, and there's like 20 comedy clubs out here and just perform all over town. And there's people from all over the world here, so I get a whole variety of ethnicities in the audience.
Senator Mi Mua was first elected to the Minnesota legislature in a special election in January 2002, becoming the first and highest-ranking Hmong American elected official in the United States. She brought to her job a kind of passion, commitment, energy, and drive which quickly made her a respected leader in the Minnesota Senate.
I was born in Laos in 1969, sort of right in the middle of all the civil war and civil conflict in Laos. So I was born in a temporary refugee camp internal to Laos. And then in 1975, my family fled from Laos to Thailand, where we became political refugees. And we lived in a refugee camp in Thailand for almost 3 years. As a kid living in the refugee camp, it was a lot of fun. We didn't have to, all the worries that I'm sure my parents had about food and shelter and the future. It was really neat to have lots of adults around. I remember at night we would all get together and the grandparents and the uncles would tell us oral stories about their days back in Laos. So really a lot of fun. I also remember that in Thailand, everything was your playground. And I remember playing at the garbage dump. Because you think that the garbage dump is kind of disgusting, but boy, for a 7 or 8 year old child, it was a treasure chest. We would go and pick up bottle tops and we would bring it back and use it to play checkers with. Or we would have a contest about who could get the most rubber bands, and then we would string it into these rubber band strings that we would use to play with, and it was really, really great fun. In the refugee camp, we lived in these United Nations issued huts that were built, dirt floors, no running water, no electricity. Each family had a big container where we would go to the community pump and you would get your own water. And then food was rationed, sometimes on a daily basis. So you would go and get your breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the day or perhaps for the week. In 1976, my grandparents were resettled in the United States. And between 1976 and 1978, my parents were processed. And we were sponsored by Catholic Charities and by my grandparents in 1978. So in June of 1978, we left the refugee camp and we were resettled in Providence, Rhode Island. It was one of those experiences where it felt like you were kind of having an out-of-body experience. I felt like sometimes I didn't know if I was dreaming or if it was real, and being jet-lagged and being half asleep, it did sometimes feel like I was kind of dreaming and it wasn't quite real. And it was really, as a child, it was really a lot of fun to discover all these new things in our new apartment, new pots and pans, figuring out how the stove works. The bathrooms were fascinating. These toilets where instead of dumping water into it, you just press a little button and everything just disappears. So it was really great fun. And it was such a time of wonderful discovery.
Of course, adjusting to life in America brought its own challenges, such as learning a new language.
I remember the first moment when I realized I could speak English was in the spring of my 5th grade year. We'd just come in from recess, and I think that afternoon we were doing science, and we were doing a unit on precipitation. And I remember the visual so clearly in my mind because you can see the cycle, the trees and the river and the clouds, and then the clouds raining and the precipitation coming down. And I remember that for some reason that afternoon I had the courage to raise my hand, and I was called on, and I read an entire paragraph out of the science textbook all by myself. And I remember going home with one of those certificates with a smelly sticker on it. I think that if I search, I still have the smelly sticker in a box somewhere.
But at that time in history, due to the recent war, Asian Americans were not always accepted, even in her small Midwestern town.
We had lots of kids, who were very mean, the usual chink and gook, and more often than not, go back to your own country. Our house would get egged on a regular basis. Walking to school, my siblings and I would get trash thrown at us out of people's cars. Or, it was not unusual that while we were standing in the corner to cross the street to get to our school, like somebody would lean over and take their ashtray, from their cars and just toss them at us. And we accepted that because we knew we were different. We look around us, and we were the only people who looked like us in a sea of people who looked like each other. And
this began to fuel a fire within me.
I was very angry and very enraged at some of these experiences. And I firmly believed that I would have been the leader to establish the first Hmong girl gang in that city if there were more of us. But there was only a handful of us.
And it was up to her to decide how to channel that energy.
I often tell the story when I meet with young people that there were incidences and there were opportunities I had where I actually went to my closet and, I played t-ball, and I would take out my baseball bat and literally lay it at the door and say, I'm going to do something about this. But it really was my parents who came in and intervened and helped to really channel some of those anger into a very positive direction. To have my mom and dad say, we understand what you're experiencing. We experience it too on a regular basis. You're never going to be able to take your skin off and change who you are. So she said, if you want to live in this country for the rest of your life, you will always look the way you look. And somebody somewhere would just never like you because of the way you look. But she also said, if you study hard and you get a good job, you go to college and you come back and you make something of yourself. People may not like you because of the way you look, but they'll have to respect you because of who you are.
It's that advice that drove me to success.
And so when I went off to college, I intended to be a doctor for my parents. And maybe it was fortunate that I almost failed organic chemistry because once I got to campus, I became fascinated by the type of student activism that was really erupting all around me. I often tell a story about the college experience is what gave me the vocabulary to articulate all those negative feelings that I had growing up. To have the opportunity to decipher and to learn and to think through and to talk about and to work over concepts like racism and bigotry and multiculturalism and pluralism and my personal identity as female and Asian and Hmong and living in America and where my significance is. That journey really liberated me and transformed me into a very, very political animal. And that was when I became very involved in student activism on campus, very involved with the Asian American Student Association, very involved with Students on Financial Aid, protested on campus, went on strike with the plant operations staff. And that's what led to not going to all the laboratories for chemistry, thereby failing chemistry, right?
Her failing chemistry shifted her focus toward politics.
You know, I grew up living on public assistance, and my family was on, we lived on food stamps, and we got medical assistance, and we lived on public housing, in public housing. That was how I grew up. And so at the back of my mind, I always felt very, very keenly aware of the role that class plays in this country. And I continue to feel that class, more than even race or ethnicity, plays a very, very critical role in how we allocate resources. And so when I changed major from being a biology major in pre-med to being pre-law and focusing on public policy, my focus was on poverty policy, because I knew a lot about that. I knew a lot about what it was like to be poor and to live in this country and to be dependent on public assistance. And the deep, deep harm that we do to people and their sense of personal worth and their morale when we impose all types of burden on them to make them feel like they're somehow worth less than others just because their economic condition forced them to be dependent on public assistance.
In 2002, her state senator became the mayor of her city. A special election was held to fill the vacant Senate seat. Me decided to run.
And I often tell people that if I knew that I was going to win, maybe I wouldn't have been so enthusiastic about running for the office.
But she did win and became the first Hmong senator in America.
It wasn't really so much about me more, but it was like I was the vehicle for the rest of the community to look upon the Hmong American community in a different light.
So what about her family?
I met my husband, I think, in 1995 when I was a law student. And my husband was a reporter, actually, for one of our local newspapers. And he was covering a story for which I was the designated spokesperson for the family that was involved in the story. And so I was his source to some extent. I can't remember, but I think I was the one who asked him out on a date. We dated for a long time, and we finally got married in December of 1999, so 4 years.
Together, they are raising 3 children and providing primary care for her mother-in-law.
I cherish my role as a daughter-in-law in my mother-in-law's home. She lives with me, and I honor her tremendously. People out in the community would ask my sisters-in-law or my relatives, you know, so at home, does she ever cook? Or does she do any housework? Because they have this perception that when I come home, you know, I just kind of sit there and on the couch and I order people around to do what it is that I want them to do. And so I have a wonderful network of relatives who really contribute to tell the real story that, yeah, I actually clean my own bathrooms, you know. I actually do cook and I shop and I take care of my own children. And just to really create a real picture of what my home life is. And it's not that different or extraordinary from people's perceptions.
To me, being a politician is more than just a job.
I would challenge anybody who thinks that their politics is not personal. I'm one of those people where I'm proud to be a politician. Nowadays, it's not fashionable to be a politician because it's so often maligned. The fact that I'm taking care of an older adult, the fact that I have young children and I'm a working mother, it makes me more aware of the realities that my constituents face on a day-to-day basis. It's not every day that a young Hmong American child can drive by the state capitol and can point to this dome and say, my mommy works there.
To me, heritage and family are of the utmost importance.
The definition of family is not just mom and dad and Chase and Shang and Amelia, but that family is mom and dad, all of mom's brothers and sisters and grandma and grandpa, all of dad's brothers and sisters and grandma and grandpa, and then the whole host of other aunts and uncles and grandpas that are out there. That for us is family. It matters to me that when my children go outside in a snowstorm to build snow people, that they build a snow mom and a snow dad and snow Chase, snow Amelia, snow Shang, and then a snow grandma. You know, it matters to me that my children are always wondering where their grandfather is, because it says to me that for them to value that, that's the essence of what it means to be Hmong.
And this closely knit inclusion of family rings true, especially during Asian Heritage Month.
So Asian Americans, like any other American, should have the liberty to feel as fully Americanized as they want to be. But at some point, reality was set in that even if you disregard all of that, somebody somewhere will make you rethink that. And so the significance of Asian American Heritage Month is to give an opportunity for us grown-ups to go to our children to say, when you're ready, when you would like to, when the curiosity hits you, there's a cachet of history here that we will willingly give to you.
And her plans for the future?
In the immediacy, I just need to survive the legislative session and be able to plan for my daughter's birthday party. But I don't know if politics will ever really leave me. I think that I'll always continue to be a political activist, regardless of where I go in the future, because it's in my blood, it's in my genetic makeup.
But one thing's for sure, her position in the Senate is a major milestone for Hmong America.
We've made a difference. It matters to the people out there that people who look like me are present in this chamber.
Her advice to others?
To be an American citizen is to be fully engaged in the life here. To be an American citizen is to be a leader at every moment, regardless of your status or your position. To be an American citizen is to live an activist life, to listen, to be engaged, to participate, whether that's as an employee in your company or as a volunteer parent for your children's school, as a voter, to just really be engaged and participate in all the things all around you, and to be informed about all the things that are all around you, so that we as citizens don't end up in a position where by not engaging and participating, we give up our systems to the few people who are listening and participating and engaging.
Martin Yan is no stranger to television. With 30 years of experience under his belt, he's been serving up good food and tons of laughs to audiences internationally.
Well, Martin Yan, I was born in Guangzhou, China. When I was born, it's a very turbulent time in China. It's just right after the communists took over China. There's a lot of turbulence, a lot of changes. And there's nothing to eat during the late 60s and early 70s. It's not much. And everything is rationed. We have 4 ounces of oil a month. 4 ounces of oil is a quarter of a cup. Quarter of a cup of oil a month. And then 2 pounds of meat, protein, 2 pounds. That's it, 2 pounds of protein. Basically it's pork, no beef, no chicken, nothing. It's just pork. So we used to stir-fry pebbles. Psychologically, it's like food. We stir-fry pebbles and flavor with black bean sauce, and we just lick it a little bit, the flavor, and then eat rice. So time was very, very rough. And then before I was born, my father actually had a restaurant, opened a restaurant. He used to be an overseas Chinese American, owning a little small barber shop and coffee shop, cafe, serving Chinese chop suey in Portland, Oregon. So he's been in America. And like the old days, a lot of them cannot really stay. Even though they stay, they really don't get anywhere. So whenever they make just enough money, eventually they would go back to China and open a neighborhood restaurant. And my mother helped my mother open a grocery store. So when I was growing up, I was actually hanging around the restaurant, the grocery store, and the restaurant. After I finished elementary school, then I went to Hong Kong. I went to high school because I left Hong Kong telling my principal and the teacher said I have to go to Hong Kong to pick up some inheritance from my father. So they let me go, and supposedly I have to return to China.
He was supposed to return to China, but...
So I left when I was 13, and I never returned. My mother said, stay, don't come back. So I did not go back to China until I graduated from college with a master's degree. When my father passed away when I was younger, and then my mother said, hey, leave. So I went to stay with my distant uncle.
His uncle's restaurant quickly became his life.
And I actually slept in the restaurant after the restaurant closed every night. And I help out after school, on weekends, and also in the summer. So that's why this is how I polish my culinary skill.
That restaurant wasn't Martin's only exposure to food.
I'm always around it because I was brought up in that environment because my father had a restaurant, my mother had a grocery store. And when we went to Hong Kong, I also stayed with my distant uncle, also have a restaurant. So I hang around food ever since I was born. You know, basically I just work in a restaurant because I have to work in a restaurant so I can get room and board and a few extra dollars. And then before I graduate, I actually went to culinary school, hoping when I come over here, I can get a job in a restaurant.
So Martin made his way to North America.
I first arrived in Canada, actually, because it's cheaper and it's easier to go to Canada. And I stayed in Edmonton. That was the coldest year in 40 years. Minus 40, minus 35 degrees. So I was there for a few months. Then in the spring break, I came down here to visit a friend, and his brother and sister went to UC Davis. And I followed him and came down here and visit. And I like Northern California so much. I didn't even go back to pack up. I just said, whoever you want, whoever my roommate need, you take it, just take it. He sent a few clothes back to me and that's it. And I didn't even go back, it's too cold.
Even the UC Davis campus reminded Martin of home.
I like the bicycle, because the bicycle remind me of old China. In China, in the old days, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, it's all bicycle everywhere. And you go to Davis, it's all bicycle. So I said, gee, this is just like China. I love it. I'm going to be riding bicycle and racing bicycle all over. So that's why it gives me the sense of, oh, you know, Davis is a place I wanted to be. I didn't realize how hard it is anyway.
But the out-of-state tuition costs stretched his budget to the max.
In order for me to make enough money, I actually have to do something else. So I keep on bugging the extension, the dean of extension. I say, I want to teach, because I heard there's some Chinese teaching Chinese cooking in UCLA, Madam Wong teach Chinese, and I heard about it and I said, gee, I would love to teach, even though I've never taught classes before. I was just a freshman, right?
To save costs, Martin shared an apartment with 5 other roommates.
So we end up having 5 people, 6 of us stay in a 2-bedroom apartment. Each room will have 3 people, no bed, just mattress, 1, 2, 3. We just, and then we take turn to cook dishes. And that's the time that I said, gee, we gotta make some money.
So Martin started teaching and quickly found it lucrative.
In those days, as I said, all my roommates are making 85 cents, $1 an hour in working in a restaurant. I was making $18 an hour, teaching cooking classes. So this is how and then on weekends I take the group to Chinatown to make a few extra bucks. And I will buy the stuff and bring it back and I make a few extra bucks. This is how I make enough money to go to college.
Martin had found his passion.
Just like Oprah Winfrey said, if you love what you do, if you're good at what you do, you love what you do, your everyday paycheck is just a bonus. And I consider myself as a culinary and cultural ambassador. I'm an ambassador. I'm not an expert. I'm not a master chef. I just love what I do and I continue to do it. I will continue to do it whether you like it or not. I would do it because it's what I like.
Not only does he like it, he's good at it.
Well, look at this. It's an award. This television or what tell you what. But anyway, a lot of people probably don't realize that we have done television since 1970, end of 1978. So since then, have been 30 years. And we have been very, very fortunate that the Yan Can Cook Show have won numerous awards and recognition worldwide. The show have been broadcast in about 60 countries around the world. And all the way from South Africa to North America, to Australia, to Japan, to Southeast Asia, Middle East, and Europe, and India.
So exactly how did Yan Can Cook start?
When I graduated from college, I actually went to Canada again to help a friend to open a restaurant. And then I was a guest on a local talk show. And then I appeared once. And then it turned out that they asked me to do 130 shows. And since then, in 1978, I've done close to more than 3,000 shows. This is how my television career started. I never faced any television. I was never trained on television. I am not a media person. I don't know how to communicate. I have no idea why I'm on television.
But experience wasn't necessary. Martin had the right combination of charm and comedic timing to pull it together, along with some help.
The year one, we have a chef help him out. We have a lady help me out to wash dishes, and me and the chef to go shopping. But we end up finish 130 shows in 23 days. And then it turned out the show was immensely popular in commercial station in Canada. All of a sudden, 6 weeks later, they said, a lot of people writing, get your recipe. So Martin, do me a favor, write a book. So I don't have any money to publish a book. So I round up all my friends, including my future wife, my wife. I said, okay, do me a favor. Each of you do me a favor, loan me $3,000 so I can publish a book. And we published a book, and we sold out the first printing of 6,000 copies in 3 months.
Not only did the first 6,000 copies sell out, but that first book, The Joy of Walking, was picked up by Doubleday Publishers.
Then after I finished the first year, 130 shows, and then they asked me to do another 130 shows, another 130 shows, and then after the 4th year, after I finished 520 shows, I decided it's time to move on. So I moved back to Canada, to the US. By then, I want to get married. So I moved back and I get married, and my wife doesn't want to go to Canada. It's too cold, right? So we end up going, working with KQED. So working KQED, we start 26 shows first, and it turned out to be very good. And then since then, since 1982 to 2008, we have been working on PBS for all this year.
What's Martin's secret to success?
I never take success seriously. I just want to have fun. So I don't have any pressure. I always say, hey, I hope you like it. If you don't like it, too bad.
Since Yan Can Cook took off, Martin has appeared on many shows with many other famous people, including The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and even leading up to meeting the legendary Julia Child. He's even cooked for Bill Cosby, and he loves sharing his friends with others.
I always tell people, my philosophy is, if I can make one person smile that day, that's a good day for me. If I can make a lot of people smile and laugh and feel good about themselves, that is a tremendous day for me.
So it may seem like he's done so much, yet he still has a few simple wishes remaining.
And I make a statement. I said, when I am 50, I would like to do a few things. One of the things is I'm going to prepare an imperial banquet to celebrate my mother's birthday. And then my second wish is I would take my mom to travel around the world. And then the third one is I'm going to bring Yan Can Cook to China.
And he's got a ton of published books to his credit. Books that share the same spirit of fun and adventure found on his television shows.
There's a little cubs that they were so active, they're chasing after me. I was trying to get away from them. There 14 of them chase after me, and we're having a good time. Eventually, I cook for them. I cooked them a banquet.
How does his family view his success?
You know, they don't believe. They still don't understand why I'm on that field. They always thought that I'm a cook in the kitchen. And in fact, when I write occupation, I always put down occupation cook. I'm a cook. I'm a cooking teacher. Well, not only that, I do book tour for other people. Do I help other people to promote their book? Because I got too many books, I don't know which one to promote anyway. So, but I hope people would enjoy this new book. This is a beautiful book. Look at this. Look at the back cover. And this is the back cover, and this is the front cover. And this is so beautiful. The food, the food is so beautiful. It's amazing. Look at the images. Look at the images, okay? Look at the images.
Despite the success, Martin leads a rather simple life.
Look at the way I do things. I don't. $20 US, okay? I mean, I don't drive a Mercedes-Benz. I can't afford a Mercedes-Benz. Okay? I always joke with people. A lot of people have problem with money. Now, I can help you. If you have money problem, I can help you. If you have a problem, you send it to me, okay? I'll take care of you.
Surprisingly, Martin personally signs every book ordered from his website.
To you, have a happy, exciting, and wonderful life. So I just keep signing. Because I get no help from here. Okay? See, these girls refuse to sign it for me. And most people, they will ask somebody else to sign it.
Earlier this year, Martin opened a cooking school in China.
In Shenzhen, China, right next to Hong Kong. This is all open last month, very new. So I invite all of you to come to Shenzhen, China, to Martin Yan's Culinary Art Center for a total exciting culinary and cultural experience.
So how did Martin and his wife meet?
We went to the same school at UC Davis, and she studied biological science, I studied food science. And all her roommates took my cooking class except her. So one day I was so curious, and I actually asked her, how come you never take my cooking class? And then I date her. And I was just curious. And then after that, I get to know her, and then she's a very sweet, charming lady. So we decided, a few years later, we decided to get married. I have twin boys, they're 15 years old. They just turned 16. And they enjoy having the opportunity to live around here with a lot of friends and buddies. And the people around here are very friendly. And the kids are about the same age, and they all are really good friends.
And of course, there's Sumo, the newest member of the Yan family. To relax, Martin enjoys his koi pond.
18 is the good luck number. So I used to have 18 here. Then each time I leave for 1 week, I probably lose one. And if I leave for 2 weeks, I lose two. So now I have about 13 or 14 left.
And gardening.
I have maybe about 80 to 100 different type of plants. And I have strawberry, I grow strawberry here. I was working on the garden last night. Look at this. I was working on the garden. I was trimming this. I was trimming this. At dark, I can't even see it. I just kind of trim it.
And of course, cooking. Ever wonder what Martin's kitchen looks like? We call this Around the Kitchen in 90 seconds.
Basically, this is for the home use, and this is for when we test recipe on this side. All the pots and pans, I can pull it out. I pull out all the ingredients from here. See this? Just a little space, we also make use of it. You know, all of this, everything is recycled here. You want to be recycled? And then you can literally pull the whole thing out, see? Wow. Seaweeds, all kind of Japanese seaweeds. See, we have a professional sharpener here for professional knife. I have knife here, and I put it over here. Big knife, small knife, choppers, big knife, strange looking knife, knife of holes. And then we have Western knife right here. See? So we have all kind of knives.
So what's next for Martin?
I feel very content with my life, and I'm very happy with what I have. What I am today, and I'm not going to ask more. I'm so happy, and I feel so blessed.
And his advice to new immigrants?
As an immigrant, just like many of us are immigrant, and we all came over here to look for and seek for the American dream. And this is a land of opportunity. All of us have the equal opportunity. This is a great country for all of us to explore, to live a good life and seek for a good life. I think the first the most important thing is believe in yourself. Believe in yourself, believe in your ability, and of course, get involved in the community. Assimilate, get involved. Don't try to keep everything to yourself. open up yourself and make friends and learn the language, learn the culture, learn to live with the neighbor, learn to live with everybody else. And I think the most important thing is always have confidence in your ability. Everybody can be different. Everybody will be different. And then don't compare yourself with anybody else. And just try the best you can and be yourself.
Dat Phan is the original winner of NBC's Last Comic Standing and is a headlining comedian touring live across the U.S. His culturally insightful comedy inspects ridiculous stereotypes and shares his experience of being a regular American guy with a Vietnamese heritage.
The place I lived in and before America was Saigon, Vietnam. I lived there for 2.5 months, and they didn't have rent control, so we left. Just kidding. So then we left, and then we ended up in Arkansas. I'm deadly serious, and I was in a refugee camp called Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. Went from there to Chicago, Illinois, with my brother-in-law who helped rescue our family. Lived in Chicago for 4.5 years. Went from Chicago to San Diego in search for jobs. In San Diego, my mom and I were actually homeless for a while, so we didn't actually have a place to live. What happened was my family was in Chicago, Illinois, and my mom got a huge argument with my sisters. 8 sisters, 1 brother. I'm the youngest. Having 8 sisters, 1 brother, and my mom, 9 women, 1 bathroom, that's not good. Come on, if you have like 9 women in a family, 8 sisters, and my mom, you're gonna have a massive cat fight. So what happened was my mom got in an argument with my oldest sister, who's kind of like, basically like the second mom. It's kind of hard to understand this unless you're from a really large family, you know, or an Asian family, which is usually large. And like, so my mom got an argument with my sisters. My sisters moved ahead to San Diego they all moved. I stayed behind with my mom. Well, it was me, my mom, and the 2 other youngest ones. And then my mom eventually, my dad decided to move to San Diego too. And when they first came to America, this is real drama. They went through a Vietnamese divorce, basically. A divorce doesn't exist in Vietnam, by the way. It's like, when you get married, that's it, right? And when they went to America, they went, wait a minute, so there's this concept where if your marriage is not working out, you can split up, and this is legal. And that's what they did, except for they didn't file for a divorce, so they're legally still married. So my mom and my dad split up, and then my dad moved to San Diego with my 2 older sisters. And then my mom and I were left behind in Chicago, and then my mom and I took the Amtrak for 3 days to San Diego. So my mom and I were basically, she doesn't speak English hardly. We didn't know how to file for welfare. Like we're having trouble, like trying to go over to the California system from Chicago. And so we ended up homeless. We ended up living on the street for like 6 months to a year. I kept asking her, like, when are we going home? Because we're just roaming around the streets. Like, is there a home? Or I didn't understand government paperwork or welfare or anything like that, you know? We were roaming around San Diego for like several months, 6 months to a year, and we finally ran into the rest of our family and got reunited. It was a very emotional thing, and I guess they made up, you know?
For the first time in a long while, Dat's family was finally back together again.
And we ended up living in City Heights. And City Heights is basically, I know San Diego's America's finest city, but actually in this case it's America's finest ghetto. I was about the age of 6. I lived there between the age of 6 and 13. I pretty much lived in gangland, you know? Well, the interesting thing is there's a lot of Hmong, there's a lot of Laos, there's a lot of Filipino, there's Black, Hispanic, there's like a lot of ethnic people that are in a poor neighborhood. And my mom wanted to keep me away from the gangs that are on the rise out there. So she used the welfare money and she bribed me to stay at home with cable TV.
But television was more than just entertainment to Dat.
TV taught me American humor. Benny Hill, by the way, is my first inspiration. Watching him and then watching George Carlin. And then later on I started watching Bill Cosby. And then I started studying Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jay Leno. And then, you know, unknown comics such as Pablo Francisco and Brian Regan.
As unconventional as it may sound,
comedians were my babysitters. At the age of 14, my sisters saved enough money from the nail salons, and this is not a joke. They had a nail salon and we had a lot of money from it. So with the nail salon money, we moved to Santee, California.
At first, Dat struggled with finding his place in high school.
As a mascot, you're not supposed to tell people who you are. People don't know who the mascot is.
So to him, becoming the West Hills mascot was the solution to Dat's anxiety. In high school, at least.
I was about to go to college, so I made it to Grossmont Community College. And I took a speech class. It was required. And I was introverted, so I was shaking and terrified when I was doing speeches.
Dat soon found that the security being a mascot provided was no longer available in a college setting.
I was regressing to my childhood, and I was thinking of how to make myself feel safe, which was humor. So I was making people laugh. I was cracking jokes and making people laugh when I was doing my speeches. I was like, wait a minute, I have the power to do this, I'm able to. It's like, He-Man, I have the power. So I had the power to do this. And I was like, I could make people laugh? And a buddy of mine who I met in there in speech class goes, you like doing stand-up? He goes, his name is Robert Mills, he's a good friend of mine. And he goes, I go, I don't know. He goes, you ever seen a comedy club? I'm like, no. He goes, why don't you come with me this Sunday, we'll watch open mic night.
So Dat and Robert were off.
I went to open mic night at the La Jolla Comedy Store.
And Dat signed up to perform.
Well, the first time I signed up on stand-up, there were like about 20 other open micers. And I was there with them, and we all do like 3 to 5 minutes apiece. And there's some that are more experienced than others, some have a natural gift. Me, I was terrible. I think I got like no laughs. They just stared at me for like 3 minutes.
This devastated Dat.
I was so introverted that I went off stage, went in the back of the comedy club, and sat down on the stairs and cried to myself.
And as he sat there, he began to tear himself apart.
I'm a loser. I'm a disgrace to my family, and I'm a disgrace to my mother. I just cried and cried and cried and cried. And it was a really rough night, you know. I came back a week later, though, because I figured, what do I have to lose? Came back a week later, still sucked. This is like this is painful. I know, it's painful to hear. I came back, I still sucked, but I got one laugh. And to a comic, that one laugh is like when you're drowning underwater and when you're not getting any laughs, you're drowning underwater. And when you get that one laugh, it's like getting that first breath of air. Like once you get that laugh, you're hooked for the rest of your life. It's like,
that one laugh was all Dat needed.
That was enough to get me to come back. Except for I sucked so bad, the comedy club didn't allow me to come back there anymore.
So Dat had to find a new avenue for his newfound confidence.
Well, I saw a comic. Her name was Jennifer, and she had like a flyer in her hand, and it said the Better World Coffee Shop. It was some coffee shop in like Normal Heights, Hillcrest, Normal Heights area. And I go, what's that? And she goes, oh, that's for open micers. I go, oh, do you think they'll let me on? She goes, they might. I mean, it's a lot easier to get in than the Comedy Store, you know? So now I went from the comedy club, kicked out, to go into a coffee shop. And I went there, and I did my third show at a coffee shop. I still sucked, but I didn't suck as bad because the audience demographics was younger, around my age. So then I came back the next week, I was invited back, and I got like probably 8 laughs, but in 5 minutes. So now I went from 0 laughs to 1 to 5 to 8 laughs by the 4th show. My stand-up was getting better and better. Eventually I started to bring like 60 people per show. So now the comedy club caught wind of it, and because I didn't realize that if you bring people, you still can get stage time.
So Dat was invited to return to the La Jolla Comedy Store to perform, and the crowds followed.
But as I was bringing people, they were making more and more money off of me, so I was able to perform at the Comedy Store like once a week, and then do the coffee shops like 2 or 3 times a week, so I was able to practice 4 or 5 times a week, you know, after a while.
The more stage time Dat received, the more refined his routine became. He was hooked. He began investing more and more time and effort into his newfound passion.
My mom had almost no money. She had to raise 10 kids already. The kids are all grown up. I'm the youngest one. She's trying to get me to go to school and get a job. Instead, I drop out of college eventually, and I live under her roof. I did other stuff too. Like eventually I got a job at SeaWorld.
And though he held a number of conventional jobs, he never truly felt complete.
It's like trying to put a square peg in a round hole. Like no matter where I went, I didn't feel like I was doing the right thing. The only thing that felt right was doing stand-up. I really found my calling, but stand-up didn't pay back then because I was so new at it.
So Dat decided to pursue his dream and move to LA. But his passion for stand-up destroyed him financially.
Eventually I ended up homeless because the collectors were going after me and I didn't really have a decent job. I worked 3 jobs, but it wasn't enough. It was like busting. I was still weighing tables and stuff like that. And I ended up living out of my car, but I self-produced a CD of my stand-up. And one of my sisters wanted to buy 20 of them so she can give it to her friends or sell it to her friends or whatever. So I took it to my sister. I drove my little broken down Saturn with 2 holes punched in the side from road debris and overdue for maintenance, and drove it down towards San Diego County and was selling my sister the 20 CDs because I needed the money. So I was selling CDs to my own family members, you know. And my sister saw it. She goes, "What's on your back seat?" And she saw I had a bunch of clothes and stuff.
It was obvious he was living out of his car, and he felt uncomfortable.
And I grabbed the money so I could have food and fuel and enough money to get to the next gig, you know. And she told my mom. And I thought my mom would be angry when she found out, but I would imagine what was going through my mom's head is, you know what? My son's not listening to me. He's doing comedy for free. He lives in LA out of his car. And he's about 150 miles away from home. I don't understand what he's doing, but I don't think me giving him a hard time about it is really gonna help anybody. So she actually started bribing me to come down to San Diego and giving me cash to eat. And she mentioned to me, she goes, I heard you were homeless, you know? I'm like, I'm staying at some friends' houses, because I didn't want her to worry. But she knew. I mean, you could tell when somebody's living out of their car, you know? I didn't shower for like 6 days, so I'd use her shower. So I'd start staying at my mom's house like once every month while living out of my car up in LA, just to shower and shave and get some nutrition in my body and stuff. I was living off of vitamins and power bars, a loaf of bread, a gallon of water behind the backseat of the car, because if I'm stuck in traffic, I'm just drinking and eating vitamins and power bars. I mean, at the age of 26, I mean, you're not at your prime anymore. I mean, you're still relatively young, but that's not good for your body. Not good for anybody's body, really.
His situation forced him to find a creative solution for mixing passion and convention.
I got a job at the La Jolla Comedy Store, the Hollywood Comedy Store, the mothership, actually the flagship club of the one that I started out in. I got a job there as a doorman, and they paid me minimum wage, but I got stage time every shift. So I was able to watch like Chris Rock come in, Eddie Murphy, Bob Saget, all these comics coming through, doing their sets. So I got the chance to see the whole process of how the entertainment business works. And at the same time, I also worked at the Improv, answering phones. So I was like a double agent.
His solution worked.
I eventually made enough money working at these comedy clubs and to pay off some of my bills. And my mom loaned me some money again, some cash, because she knew I was hurting. I told her I found an apartment in West Hollywood. So I lived in West Hollywood by Sunset and Doheny, which is borderline Beverly Hills. But technically it was in West Hollywood, so my rent was a lot cheaper. We had like a little studio. Like I lived under a desk, because that's all I could fit in there was either a desk or a bed. And next to me was a Korean guy.
It was then things started turning around.
Every morning I would check to see if there's any gigs available. And a comic, I believe his name is Joseph Nybeck. But anyways, Joseph, he emailed out that there's an experimental TV show out. There's no title for it, which eventually became Last Comic Standing. They're looking for comedians, and here's the audition. Send a package to NBC, you know, through this thing. And I was like, oh. So I put together a package. The Tonight Show people called me back and said they saw my tape and I'm qualified to come in to audition.
And audition he did, along with 2,000 or 3,000 other hopefuls. But he made it to the semifinals and the finals in Las Vegas.
Made it to the final 10, which we became a TV show at that point, who lived in a house for a month called Last Comic Standing.
The competition proved to be extremely challenging psychologically.
It was extremely hard. I was running on about 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night because we were competing. I was practicing in my hotel room that NBC got for me, and just practicing and practicing and practicing and practicing in front of a mirror, practicing in front of a wall, practicing in front of a couch, practicing in a hallway, practicing facing north, east, south, west. Like every possible way. I wanted it so bad. It wasn't really a routine, it was more like a daily grind where I would have a notebook because I couldn't afford a laptop at the time. So I would have all these papers with graphs and stuff, and I would graph out how many laughs I get per show, and I'd have a tape recorder, and I'd write out all my jokes in chronological order. I'd like time how long each bit is, and then what would happen if I rearranged bits like a Rubik's Cube, and then I would practice, and then I would watch a tape of myself and watch it where my mistakes are and fill in those gaps, and it's just like, I was like a ravenous animal that just constantly I wanted to win so bad.
The practicing paid off. Dat Phan won the first season of Last Comic Standing.
It's a true American dream story, you know, to go from just nothing to being the first Last Comic Standing. It's the greatest moment of my life, you know? Right after I won Last Comic Standing, by that point I was exposed to over 100 million people nationwide. This hasn't even hit the world yet. I was touring for a year straight, running on about 3 hours of sleep a night. I was doing interviews. I did Cellular, my first movie, just doing club after college, after college, after club, after college, after corporate show, after casino, after club, after TV show, after movie, after TV show, after club, after college. I mean, I worked like 345 days and nights that year, 2003, 2004.
How did his mom react to the good news?
Here's the deal. You're asking me if my mom understands fame? My mom doesn't have a driver's license because she still believes in the old country where you have like rickshaws carrying you around or bicycles. Her idea of celebrating that I won Last Comic Standing is to go coupon shopping. She coupon shops. She rides the bus and she goes coupon shopping at the grocery store. And she stocks up on thousands of soap bars just in case we go through a huge war where we have a shortage of soap bars, and lots of deodorant. So if we get in a war with Ban Roll-On or Degree, we'll be safe because we have a whole army of
One of the reasons Dat's comedy is so successful is because it's reality.
Because it's who I am. I'm not making this up. My sisters really own a nail salon. They really run a nail salon. They really speak Vietnamese in front of American customers. I really did fail math. I really worked at SeaWorld. These are all my jokes, and they're all real. So
Dat feels a special bond to the youth of America, especially Asian Americans.
Well, first of all, I feel a bond with young people alone. And then second of all, I feel a bond with young people that are Asian Americans especially. And the reason why is this. They get it. They get the humor. They get the inner subculture humor. And that's what I love. I love that. And it's like, isn't that so great? That I could kill two birds with one stone, that I could make America laugh, but also expose our culture to them and bring us all together. How you know, and that's why I have a bond with the next generation. Actually, that's my strong part of my demographic is younger people.
Though humor is what brought him into the spotlight, what is Dat really like off stage?
I try to be a good guy. I mean, I'm a human being just like everybody else. I have my flaws, you know. I have my weaknesses. But at the same time, there's always that pressure, that illusion, like, Dat Phan's funny all the time. And I'm not. Sometimes I just want to play a game of chess and watch Star Trek and cuddle. And that's not funny at all, you know? Or go for a jog. Or I'll be eating sometimes and like some fans will be like, what are you doing right now? I'm like, I'm eating this spaghetti. They're like, really? That's so crazy. I'm like, it's spaghetti and meatballs. I'm usually serious. I'm a pretty serious guy. I only turn it on when I'm at a comedy club, really.
So what's next for Dat?
I'm working on a Disney movie out here in New York. It's called When in Rome, and it comes out in 2009. This is probably the biggest project I'm working with right now. I feel very blessed to wake up every morning in New York and be here for 5 weeks filming a movie and doing stand-up at night. So yeah, just like 4 or 5 more movies that we're working on besides the 4 that are coming out in 2009. And it's great, great. I'm loving life right now.
His advice?
And that's what I was absorbing. That's the main universal thing I learned about all successful people is they had a plan. Because if you don't have a plan for yourself, somebody has a plan for you. It's probably not to the best of your interest. 2, you have to want it bad enough. Like you have to ask yourself, is this what I really want? And don't lie to yourself. If that's not what you really want, then you're going to eventually find out down the road because you're going to quit. You know, I've met 7 million people in the last 4 years, and I'm probably going to meet another 7 million in the next 3 to 4 years, you know? And if people were to die and they were to be asked by the universe, you know, who were the most 100 influential people in your life, it would be an honor for me to be on that list that have affected their life in some type of positive way.